everybody, and welcome back to Double Play. In this video, we're going to be previewing the Angels 2023 season. This is continuing a series that we're doing, previewing every single team's 2023 season and kind of preview to our entire MLB prediction and preview show coming closer to the start of the season. So make sure you stick around, subscribe for that. But without further ado, let's talk about the Angels offseason. Jack, what do you like that they did, and what did they do?
Well, they made a lot of moves in bulk, and I think before I started to write all these down, I just had a perception that the Angels didn't do much this offseason. They did, but I don't think it's many moves that really hit me that are like, wow, that is what the Angels needed. But they did add some, which, of course, we commend teams that actually go out and sign players instead of what team that we're going to talk about later in the AL West, maybe the A's, or teams we talked about before like the Rockies. The Angels did make moves, so let's go over them. They added Hunter Renfroe to play potentially right or left field. They added Gio Urshela, who might be able to play third base or shortstop. Added Tyler Anderson, a left-handed arm, Brandon Drury, Brett Phillips, the defensive wizard, and one of the more likable players in baseball. And they didn't lose much. They lost Michael Lorenzen, Jonathan Villar, but not a whole lot else. Ryan, what do you think is the most important move? And kind of just as a whole, how are you feeling about this Angels offseason?
I think the most important move, I'll start with that, is I'm going with Tyler Anderson. Obviously, the things we've talked about the Angels struggling for so long has been their rotation and their pitching. And to get a Tyler Anderson, who was an all-star last season from the Dodgers, I wanted the Dodgers to keep him. But obviously, he leaves to go to the Angels. He's going to be there too, which I think is kind of a ceiling for him in terms of what he should be in a rotation. And so it's a good piece to add to a not-so-great rotation. You pair him with Shohei. That's top-heavy a little bit. I mean, you have some other guys who I'm not sure I like. I know Angels fans kind of like their rotation. But Tyler Anderson was a big pickup for a rotation that was kind of subpar.
Yeah, the problem I had with that signing overall is I think you're not going to see the same kind of a season that Tyler Anderson had with the Dodgers with the Angels. And then also, I mean, lefties are nice to have, but you don't want an entire rotation full of lefties, and that's basically what the Angels are going to have. You have Shohei Ohtani as the one, and Fangraphs lists 5 other starting pitchers on the Angels, and they're all left-handed. You have Patrick Sandoval, you have Reed Detmers, now you have Tyler Anderson, and you have 2 other depth pieces as well. You're going to roll out a lefty all the time, and all these righty hitters in opposing lineups are going to just be licking their chops every time they're going up against a series against the Angels, because if you're not facing Shohei Ohtani, you're facing a lefty every single day. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure he was the pitcher that they should have gone after. Again, I'm happy like you that the Angels are prioritizing pitching, but he wasn't the player I would have gone after personally. I love the addition of Hunter Renfroe. Specifically, I think he's the most important addition for me. I had him just one spot below Teoscar Hernandez in my right field rankings, which we talked about the Mariners on Monday. This episode's coming out on Tuesday. I just don't think this move's getting the same amount of publicity as the move to bring in Teoscar Hernandez for the Mariners. Hunter Renfroe had a 124 WRC plus last season for the Brewers. He's got an 811 OPS over the last 2 years, and you're now having an outfield of Mike Trout, Taylor Ward, who's also a stud, and Hunter Renfroe. That's a pretty good outfield, and sometimes you're going to have Shohei Ohtani as the DH. Like those 4, as well as guys like Anthony Rendon and some of these other hitters that they have, if a Jared Walsh can return to form, it's making the Angels lineup look a little bit more formidable, and I just don't think it's getting as much publicity. And before we did the rankings, I wouldn't have thought Hunter Renfroe was as good as he is, or has been as good as he has been over the last couple of years. So I love that move.
Yeah, it was a good move. I think you're right. He's a pretty underrated player. You mentioned the stats. He did well. And in terms of how the offseason went, we're going to be giving him a grade here. I'll go ahead and start this one off. I've got the Angels at a B this offseason. I think they get better by adding guys like Drury, Renfroe, and Tyler Anderson. You know, I don't think they're a playoff team. However, with these pieces, I think their ceiling is a playoff team, which I guess we've sort of been able to say that for the Angels for some time now. Obviously, your ceiling with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout is always going to be hopefully a playoff team, but they haven't lived up to that yet. So adding a piece in the rotation, adding some depth pieces and some bats a little bit more in the lineup to make it a little more formidable, like you said. I'm going to go with the B this offseason. I liked what they did, but in terms of pushing the needle, I don't think it'll put them on a playoff team.
I was a little bit more harsh. I went with the C+. Personally, while they did make moves, I just felt like they're kind of grasping at straws. I don't think Gio Urshela is the long-term answer for the Angels. I'm not sure Tyler Anderson's a long-term answer. Hunter Renfroe was the only pickup that I was like, okay, that's a move that I can get behind fully. Like I understand where they're going with this one. It just didn't feel like they were trying to sign whoever they could. Like a Brandon Drury who did not hit in San Diego. Really didn't hit last year at all outside of Great American Ballpark. Now you're adding him into Angel Stadium. Like, I just don't think that these are the kind of moves that they don't feel like they had a ton of thought behind them other than we need to do something because we have to win this year. So, I like some of the moves they made. I like bringing in Renfroe. They do get a little bit better, but is it better enough to keep Shohei Ohtani happy or actually utilize his talents? I personally don't think so. They swung and missed on some of the bigger free agents, and they weren't able to go after some of them because of these big bad contracts they've given out in the past. So I went C+. I think they got better, but it's definitely not, I don't think, what they needed to do this offseason. And so I gave them a C+.
What do you think you can expect from the Angels this season with the pieces they made, with the additions they made, with the pieces they already have? What are you kind of expecting? Are you high on the Angels? I feel like some of the other creators I've talked to are high on them, as people are every year. But what do you think about for 2023?
I'm just not going to fall in the trap again. I mean, we fell in the trap mid-year last year and we said, are the Angels better than the Astros? Are they going to win the AL West? And they proceeded to lose. How many games was it in a row where they were just horrible, and they just never picked it back up after that. I mean, you saw what I thought about the offseason. You saw what I thought about the Angels for the second half of last year. I'm just going to combine them together. I don't want to get caught up in the trap of looking with blinders on it at Trout and Shohei and saying this could be a playoff team because the rest of the roster just simply isn't. I think it's going to be another disappointing season, and it's maybe the last with Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, I was going similar direction. I'm not falling for it either. Like you said, we did last year. I'm expecting a fourth place finish in the division this season. With the Rangers getting better, we're going to talk about them later this week in terms of what they did and how they're going to look for 2023. So if you're an AL West fan, make sure you stick around for that. But for the Angels, I think a fourth place finish in the division is right where they probably will finish. And like I said, their ceiling is in the playoff race, but I don't know if I believe it.
And when we get into a bold prediction, at least for mine, I'm going to go with one of the areas that I mentioned I was confident in, and that's the outfield. And I'm going to go statistically and say that they have a top 3 outfield in WRC Plus in 2023. Stick with me, a lot of stats coming. But they finished in the 7th spot last year in the entire major leagues for outfield WRC Plus. And they'll enter 2023 with a healthy Trout, which they didn't have for part of the year last year, and the addition of Hunter Renfroe. Trout, Ward, and Renfroe could all and did all finish above 120 WRC plus last year. So if they have those 3, if they can stay healthy, maybe they have to miss a couple games of a Trout or a Renfroe or a Ward. But for the entire season, 3rd place in the MLB last year was Houston with a 117 WRC plus. I think with those 3 guys in the outfield who have shown they can all produce at least a 120 WRC plus, I think the Angels are going to have a top 3 outfield in baseball, at least hitting next year.
For me, I'm going to go with a couple ones. I guess this one's not as bold, but I'll throw it out there. I'm going to say it's an MVP. I'm still deciding between Shohei or Mike Trout in terms of who I actually want from MVP. Thankfully, I don't have to decide until our full season preview. But so I'm going to go with the MVP. Not very bold. But my bold one is that if Shohei wins an MVP, it might not be with the Angels. I think he could get traded. I'll stay consistent with my Dodgers prediction where I thought maybe he goes to the Dodgers. Maybe the Dodgers put the pieces and prospects together to trade for him. But I think that's my bold prediction. On August 1st, Shohei Ohtani is not an Angel.
Has there ever been an MVP that played for 2 teams in the same season? That cannot have happened before. That because you have to be having an MVP.
Good though.
You have to be it could this year, but I mean in the past you would have had to be having an MVP caliber season because you can't have a slow first half and then come back to win the MVP. You have to be dominant the whole year and then get traded at the deadline. Like I wonder. I'm gonna have to do some research after this episode, but that would be something else. I think if I was gonna go a Shohei, I think a Cy Young would actually be a little bit more likely for me at least than an MVP. I wouldn't be surprised to see Shohei win a Cy Young this year.
I feel like if he wins Cy Young, he's got to win the MVP too.
Potentially, yeah, but the way I look at it is Trout might steal some MVP votes from him, and so I wouldn't. But there's no one on the Angels that's going to steal Cy Young votes. And I think that people have seen Shohei Ohtani win an MVP before, but they've never seen him win a Cy Young, and so voters might be a little bit more likely to lean towards the Cy Young. And he was a better pitcher than he was a hitter last year, which is the first time we've seen that. So,
I think if he puts it together, we could see that one of the greatest seasons of all time. If we already haven't from Shohei, it depends on how you value that. But I think a Cy Young where he hits 30 35 bombs is reasonable for Shohei, which is absolutely crazy to see, crazy to think about, and I think it would easily be an MVP.
I think that's the best season of all time, probably. I mean, you have a pitcher that hits 35 home runs and wins a Cy Young. That would be something else. And I think that we discount it because it's Shohei, but he's insane. And you could argue he should have won the MVP last year, and I'd be hearing you out the whole time. But that's all we've got for you guys for this video. We're doing the AL West all week, and all the way until opening day, we are previewing every single team in the major leagues. The NL West was last week. Those were all in a playlist down below under, I think I called it MLB 2023 team previews, and we are doing every single team. So if you haven't done your team yet, make sure you like and you subscribe and you hit the notification bell so you know that when we do your team. But this is the AL West for the rest of the week. I think this one's coming out on Tuesday, so 3 more teams through the week on Monday through Friday. But next week's the NL East, and we're going to keep going all the way until opening day. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Leave a comment down below with what you thought, and we will see you next time.